Alright, so we are on issue 8 of Ultimate Spider-Man, and I gotta say, we're kind of getting deeper into the story now. You know what I mean? It's been a lot of setup so far, but we're finally starting to see some of these things develop in pretty major ways, so it's really exciting. So this issue opens up in August. We can see the heat starting to increase with the weather on the TV in the Parker family household. And we see Peter just standing in his bedroom, seemingly looking at the TV, with MJ in the other room saying, "I think we're gonna be late," and he doesn't answer. "Peter, I said I think we're gonna be late," still doesn't answer. She pops her head out of the bathroom. "Hello? Earth to Spider-Man? Anybody home?" And he turns around. He's like, "Sorry, what were you saying?" She's like, "I think we're going to be late. I was thinking you and Ben could maybe swing by, grab the cake, and then meet me and the kids there." She asks him if he's okay. He's like, "I just have a lot on my mind. But also, can you believe our kids are getting a year older?" She's like, "No, I cannot." And then she leaves to take the kids to apparently their birthday party. But then after she leaves, we see Peter talking to the little orb. Remember, this is where his suit comes from in the first place. And in the last issue, we had the whole AI voice thing. So when she was calling to him, he wasn't watching the TV, he was talking to himself, telepathically. We then get one half of the conversation where he's like, no, not today. We have a brand new, very strict, no costume policy at Parker birthday parties. And the suit talks back to him and says, "Well, that's disappointing. Tell the kids I said happy birthday, though." He's like, "What the? How are you talking? You're not supposed to talk out loud." "I'm not talking out loud. You're imagining this." He's like, "What?" He says, "Just kidding." He then starts to put one of the gloves of the suit on, just a little bit, holding it up. He's like, "Hilarious. And people think I'm not funny. But how are you talking then?" The suit talks back to him, "I'm a perfect replica of your psyche housed in a totally independent and completely adaptable Pico shell. I can talk." Peter's like, "Okay, and what else can you do that I don't know about?" And then this really ominous panel where we see Peter's reflection in it, and he's like, "Oh, I can do all kinds of things, Peter." And then he puts it down. He's like, "I have to go, but we're gonna talk about this more later." The suit says, "I look forward to it, and remember to wish the kids happy birthday for me." And then he leaves before we get some narration that says, "So I have a question about my suit." And then we jump back 3 weeks ago when we had our finale, the little cliffhanger with Iron Lad finally showing up for the first time. We're finally gonna get a follow-up to it. Finally, we like this whole thing that we've been looking forward to. You know, we've been covering the whole Ultimate Universe on this channel. Check out the playlist here if you haven't seen all the videos. But there's been such an importance placed on his arrival, placed on this connection. The whole 6-month countdown was leading to this moment. So what is it? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you up front, it's a little bit disappointing. He says, "Yeah? That's the first thing you want to ask me?" And Peter's like, "Well, I have more." And Harry chimes in, "So do I." Peter says, "But yes, actually, I don't get it. Why is my suit so much different than his?" Remember, they talked about this, Peter's suit being more advanced than Harry's. And Tony actually explains, "That was the last breakthrough my father made before he was trapped in the city with the Maker. It was the last thing he ever made. The picotech that makes up your suit is revolutionary. It's way beyond anything I even know how to make." So when we saw him putting these suits together in Ultimates #1, he wasn't actually making Spider-Man's suit. He was designing it. I think he was putting in the designs of the suit or something like that, and then just attaching it to the technology that his father had already made. So I guess I have no idea how that works. And Tony says, "When I was putting together the packages, like again we saw in Ultimates #1, I thought it should go to someone who might need it the most. Something special for someone special." And Peter's like, "I don't know, I've been hanging around with these guys. They seem pretty smart. What exactly makes me so special?" And Tony takes off his helmet. He's like, "You don't know? Of course you don't. How could you? You don't have you're special because you're at the top of the list." And Harry's like, "List? What list?" And Tony explains, "There's a database that exists. When the guy who built this great society was eliminating all potential resistance or opposition, taking out all potential enemies, there's a handful of heroes that he deemed mission critical to erase from history. They're the ones who had to go, top of the list." And Otto's like, "Wait, that wasn't in any of the files." And Harry agrees, "We did learn about the Maker and what he did, but Otto's right. There was nothing in the files about that. You better not be lying." And Tony's like, "I'm not. And who are you supposed to be? In that suit of stolen armor?" And Harry's like, "Don't worry about it." Tony says nothing and then touches the chest of the armor, popping his mask right off. And Peter's like, "See? Not cool when someone does it to you, is it?" Tony says, "I know that face. You're Harry Osborn. You stole my birthright." And Harry says, "Actually, I paid for it." And Tony says, "Pennies on the dollar? Fair price for a company run by traitors. I went to bed one day loving the world and seeing it how a child does. And then I woke up into a world full of monsters and men, never again able to sleep soundly. None of our fathers are perfect. Especially mine." And they stand there in the empty warehouse. Peter saying, "So what now?" Tony's like, "The Maker returns in a little over a year. Get ready for him." And Harry chimes in again, "Where was I? Excuse me? Where was I? On the list?" And Tony's like, "You weren't on it at all. But if you're hanging out with this guy, I'm sure you'll grow into the suit. So keep it. and the company. I've moved on to bigger things. I guess we all have. I'll be in touch. And they all look out at the window looking at Iron Lad leaving. And Peter's like, he seems okay. And Harry and Otto have a side conversation saying, Otto, yes? We have to find a way to upgrade the security of our suits. And I'll be honest, this is kind of why I said it was a little bit disappointing because, like, seriously, I don't want to be over dramatic or unappreciative, but like, there was a whole countdown to his arrival. It was this big grandiose thing, and then he gets there and he barely even talks to Peter. It seemed like it was going to be such an important meeting, right? It was going to be the first time that Iron Lad and Spider-Man ever met. So I thought there was going to be like a huge conversation, but it really wasn't. It seems like it was more for Harry's character and like help him understand his place. So it's like we have this huge cliffhanger at the end, which is really, really cool. And he's like, are you a hero yet? And then in this issue, it's like, oh, you are? Okay, bye. Like, and it's just over. But then again, this is Hickman, and his whole writing style is let's set this up now so we can execute with something huge later. So I'm sure there's something big there that's going to come later. But I also want to say it's really, really cool that we have this revelation now that Peter is apparently at the top of the list, which explains why the very first hero in Ultimate Invasion is Spider-Man. Like, that was the importance of that. That's all going to come back. So I'm trusting that there's a process to this. It just feels a little bit underwhelming right now, but I'm sure we will all come to appreciate that a little bit later. And it's also kind of an interesting meta situation because it's putting Spider-Man back at the forefront, back as one of the core heroes, because canonically we don't know why Spider-Man would be at the top of the list, but it does feel a little bit weird because he's a street level hero. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Captain America. He's not at the top of the list. Reed Richards, he's not the top of the list. Doctor Doom, he's not the top of the list. Like, none of these people are top of the list. All of these like cosmic Omega level mutants or, you know, anybody like that, none of them, they're not top of the list. But when you think about it in terms of the old Ultimate Universe and the fact that Ultimate Spider-Man was one of the prominent characters, one of the most important, hell, the most important. Like, if you ask 99% of people, you know, people who read comics, they'll likely say that they read Ultimate Spider-Man all the way through, but didn't touch anything else in the Ultimate Universe, or they read a little bit of Ultimate Spider-Man and didn't touch any of the other stuff. And there's also the fact that Spider-Man is the biggest character of Marvel. Like, he's up there with Batman and Superman in terms of popularity. He's the face of the company, and so it makes sense for him to be the most, you know, it puts him at the center of the universe. So that's really, really cool, and that's why I feel like I can trust it a little bit more to have them put this off a little bit. Like, he's going to be the ultimate last step of the Ultimates, which is really, really cool. But moving on, we go to this bakery with Peter, Ben, and Jonah to pick up a cake for the party, and Jonah's just in the back going, I'll have a deli sandwich, and we're in a hurry, so to go. And the guy behind the counter is just like, this is a bakery. We see Peter and Ben talking, and Peter's like, I don't remember Jonah being invited to a kid's birthday party. And Ben's like, don't tell him I said this, but I think Jonah's a little bit lonely. Peter's like, really? He's like, yeah. And we hear Jonah in the background still going back and forth with this guy. So it's like this, you got a bakery, and that means you got bread. You take 2 pieces of that bread, and you just stick something in the middle, maybe season it up. You do that, you're golden. Ben continues, he also happened to get a gift for Richard. Peter's like, that's unusually sweet of him. And Ben's like, he has his moments, Peter. Did he get anything for May? I don't think he knows it's her birthday party too. How does he not? Their birthdays are in the same month. And Jonah comes over, cream cheese on a croissant. That's what I'm eating. Is this what the world's come to? Is that all there is? And then he looks to Ben, he's like, did you tell him? And they look at each other, and Peter's like, what? And Ben's like, the paper launches next month. When it does, we want you on board. They then walk outside, and Peter's like, guys, look, I've worked at the Bugle for over a decade. I've had other jobs, sure, but this is my career. There's security. I have a 401k, a family. Look, there's a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. I'm just not sure it's the right time. Plus, I'd have the 2 of you in this endless banter to look forward to every day. And Jonah's like, and some weekends. And Peter's like, I'm gonna have to talk to MJ about this. And Ben says, well, tell her you're gonna get a raise. We then flash forward to the party. Everyone's chilling, everyone's having fun. Then we see Jonah have a moment with Peter's son. He comes up like, hey kid. Oh, hey Mr. Jameson. I didn't know you were coming. Well, I'm not normally much of a party person, but your uncle wanted me to tag along. Don't tell him this, but I think he gets lonely. Really? He doesn't seem lonely. That's because people do a very good job of hiding that. Now, I got you a gift. When I was your age, I used to get lonely all the time. I didn't really have many friends at school. I was off reading in the library or in the back of the class. Do you know anybody like that? And Richard's like, yeah, maybe. What about when you were older? After school. Jonah says, well, that's different. Getting a job does that. You learn about purpose and responsibility, and then it's no longer enough to be interesting or charming or even popular. It's more complicated than that. So most people come and go and don't really stick around. But if you're lucky, you can meet someone who cares about the same things that you do, like I did with your Uncle Ben. He then hands him the present. Richard unwraps it, and it's a book by Jonah Jameson called I Never Lie. And Richard's like, whoa, you wrote a book? And Jonah says, a couple years ago. I did it in my spare time between stories stories at the Bugle. I sent it to a couple publishers, but no one was really interested. So I published it myself. I think I actually lost money on it, but it was out in the world and it was mine. And now it's yours. And Richard actually takes pretty well to this gift. I thought it was gonna be like a joke thing, but he's like, this is really cool. Thanks, Mr. Jameson. He crosses his arms and smiles, says, you're welcome, kid. Then we jump to Fisk Tower. Now for a hot minute, we have been waiting to see how this is going to escalate. Fisk has been the big bad very clearly from the beginning. Harry tried to kill him. Harry nearly killed his bodyguard, one of the bullseyes. We've seen the angle that Uncle Ben and Jonah are taking to try and cover the true news that he won't cover out of spite because he's controlling all the content at the Bugle. We got Harry's backstory with him. We saw Peter and Harry try and fail to take him in a fight. We've seen his multiple meetings with Captain Britain, and in the most recent issue, he swore that he was going to take care of it himself. So what does that look like? What shape does that take? Well, I'll tell you. There is a long scene here introducing every individual member very thoroughly, but I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. It's the Sinister Six. He's putting together the Sinister Six of the Ultimate Universe. That's why there's been so much buildup. That's why this has taken so long to, get to this point. In the interesting way that they spin it for this universe, with Kingpin kind of being the big crime boss of New York, the ultimate guy in charge placed there by Captain Britain himself as an extension of the Maker's Secret Council. The Sinister Six are his subordinates. They're his underlings. They're the ones that control all the other different territories of New York. In the main Marvel universe, you would normally see different crime bosses fighting to take over all the time. Tombstone, Hammerhead, Kingpin, the Owl. But in this one, he controls all of them. They're all in it together, working for the same people. They work for Fisk. Fisk works for Captain Britain. Britain is on the Secret Council. The Secret Council works for God. And to me, that is so cool. So this Sinister Six consists of Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, Walter Hardy, the father of Black Cat, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Mole Man, and then Kingpin himself. So they are all going to come together to work on a big problem for all of them, since they're all part of New York and they all want to take down Spider-Man. This is our Sinister Six. So if Spider-Man and Green Goblin struggle to take down Kingpin himself, imagine what this is going to look like. This is going to be crazy. So while I say that this issue was disappointing because of the letdown with Tony Stark, it also built up so many other things and continued on things that we had seen develop in the background a little bit the entire time. So the Kingpin threat, Jonah Jameson's loneliness, we got some backstory with him, a good emotional moment, the evolution of the paper, all of that, as well as the meeting with Tony Stark. It's finally executing on all these ideas that it built up, and in true Hickman style, it only builds up more. So I'm really excited to see how this progresses. I think it's going to be really cool, but please let me know how you feel down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this issue was good? Do you like this version of the Sinister Six? Who would you have preferred, if not these guys? If you think they're cool, let me know. If you think they're not, drop your ideal Sinister Six in the comments. But yeah, I thought this issue was great. I'm really excited. Let me know if you want me to keep covering Ultimate Spider-Man. And yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching.